Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're skipping the usual intro stuff because we are plunging right into the shadowy, Gothic streets of Carlos Ruiz Zafón's absolute masterpiece, The Shadow of the Wind. This is a story all about love, wild obsession, and the literal power of literature, all tangled up in this sprawling, epic mystery. We've got a ton of ground to cover, so let's just jump right in. I still remember the day my father took me to the cemetery of forgotten books for the first time. That is the iconic opening line of the novel, and it instantly hooks you. Picture this, it's 1945. Barcelona is living under the really grim, heavy shadow of the post-Spanish Civil War era. Our narrator, an 11-year-old kid named Daniel Sempere, wakes up in a total panic because he realizes he can't remember his dead mother's face anymore. So to comfort him, his dad, who's an antiquarian bookseller, leads him through the dawn mist to this secret, almost magical library. The rule is Daniel is allowed to choose one single book to protect for life. He pulls this dusty volume from the shelf called The Shadow of the Wind by this completely unknown author named Julián Carax. And he's so hooked he reads the whole thing in a single night.
But here's where things get wild. This one innocent choice thrusts Daniel into some really extreme danger. See, Daniel loves the book so much he wants to read more by Carax. But as he starts digging around, he makes a chilling discovery. Someone, or something, is actually wandering the world, tracking down literally every single copy of Julián Carax's work and throwing it into the fire. So it starts as just a kid's literary curiosity, instantly transforms into a gripping detective story. Daniel is suddenly a target in a very dangerous game. And to figure out why, he has to reconstruct the vanished life of this mysterious author.
Okay, let's dive into this structure, because Zafón brilliantly builds this narrative almost like a set of Russian dolls. Every mystery you open just reveals another mystery hiding inside it. Notice the timeline here, mapping out the massive scope of the story. It essentially spans 5 decades. We start way back in the past, from the 1910s through the 1930s, which holds all the tragic secrets of Julián Carax's youth. Then we jump to 1945 when Daniel actually discovers the book and his investigation kicks off. And finally, the narrative stretches all the way to 1966 when the cycle officially closes. The whole thing is this magnificent puzzle where the past and present are just constantly colliding.
Now, at the emotional core of this entire universe is the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. Tucked away in a damp, shadowed street in the old town of Barcelona, this massive maze-like sanctuary isn't just a cool Gothic setting. It is absolutely the beating heart of the novel. As Zafón himself pointed out, it serves as a really powerful visual metaphor. It's not just about forgotten books, it represents forgotten people and ideas. In a time of severe political repression and tyranny following the Civil War, this hidden library stands for the ultimate preservation of memory and the human soul against censorship. It's basically a fortress against forgetting.
To navigate this crazy labyrinth, we really need to meet the key players who get pulled into Daniel's orbit. First up is Fermín Romero de Torres. This guy is a trip. A former spy and political prisoner who's obsessed with sugared candies. He becomes Daniel's eccentric sidekick, bringing both brilliant comic relief and some surprisingly deep, street-smart wisdom. Then we've got Beatriz, or Bea, Aguilar, the fiercely brave sister of Daniel's best friend. She becomes his greatest ally and, eventually, his love interest. We also have Núria Montfort, a tragic femme fatale tied to Carax's publisher. She feeds Daniel this tangled mix of vital truths and protective lies. And finally, the shadow looming over the whole bunch, Inspector Javier Fumero. He is a deeply corrupt, violently obsessive cop with a terrifying connection to Carax's past.
Part 1. The Hidden Past of Julián Carax. To understand why Fumero is hunting our heroes in the present, we've got to peel back the layers and reconstruct the deeply hidden, tragic youth of our enigmatic author.
So, Daniel's sleuthing leads him to Carax's old school, which is where the dominoes really began to fall. Julián grew up in a pretty abusive home, but this very wealthy, powerful guy, Mr. Aldaya, took a strange interest in him and actually paid his private school tuition. Julián got super close with the Aldaya family, and soon enough, a forbidden cross-class romance blossomed between Julián and Mr. Aldaya's daughter, Penelope. They were just desperately in love. But, waiting in the wings, was a young Javier Fumero, the future inspector, who was the son of the school's caretaker back then. Fumero was also completely infatuated with Penelope, and when she rejected him, it bred this violent, lifelong jealousy and a terrifying hatred for Julián that would literally fester for decades.
But honestly, the jealousy of a schoolmate was nothing compared to the dark family secret that ultimately destroyed them all.
Daniel uncovers a totally devastating twist. Mr. Aldaya hadn't mentored Julián out of the goodness of his heart. He was, secretly, Julián's biological father, which meant Julián and Penelope were unknowingly half-siblings. When the wealthy patriarch found out about their affair, his reaction was just monstrous. Julián was forced to flee to Paris, having no idea about the shocking truth, while Penelope was quite literally imprisoned in her own home by her family. Tragically, she died in a locked room, giving birth to their stillborn child.
Now notice the eerie juxtaposition here of fire and shadow. It perfectly captures the novel's themes of identity and overwhelming grief. Because years later, Julián returns to Barcelona and discovers Penelope's grave hidden in the crypt beneath the Aldaya mansion. And the sheer agony of this discovery absolutely shatters his mind. In a fit of total despair, he sets fire to the warehouse storing his own books, and he suffers horrific facial burns in the process. Disfigured and completely broken, Julián adopts the name Lane Kubert, and if you've read Carax's book in the story, you'd know Lane Kubert is literally the devil character from the pages of his own fiction. Julián Carax becomes the villain of his own story, a literal shadow roaming the world, obsessively burning his life's work just to erase his own existence.
Part 2. Parallel Lives and Dark Secrets. Because as Daniel digs deeper into this 50-year-old mystery, he slowly begins to realize something deeply unsettling. He isn't just reading a tragedy, he's starting to relive it.
Just take a look at the eerie, almost deterministic mirroring between these two lives. Julián Carax was a young writer who fell deeply in love with Penelope but faced insurmountable, violent opposition from her father. Now look at Daniel Sempere. He's also a young writer. He falls desperately in love with Bia, and as their forbidden romance comes to light, what happens? He faces intense, violent threats from Bia's father. History is repeating itself right in front of us. Zafón is deliberately crafting this to make us wonder, is Daniel doomed to suffer the exact same tragic fate as the author he idolizes?
The tension reaches an absolute boiling point as Inspector Fumero, who is now fully unhinged and wielding all the power of a corrupt state, starts closing in on Daniel. He wants to finally destroy Carax and anyone connected to him. But here is the crucial difference that empowers Daniel to break this curse. He isn't alone. While Julián Carax was entirely isolated in his tragedy, keeping all these secrets that eventually destroyed him, Daniel actually has allies. He's got the unwavering loyalty and street smarts of Fermín, and he's got the fierce, active bravery of Bia. Together, they flat-out refuse to be victims of a forgotten past.
Part 3. Breaking the Tragic Cycle. Decades of simmering jealousy, hidden identities, and forbidden love are about to collide, and we are heading right into the explosive climax of The Explainer.
So, the grand finale is this super cinematic, pulse-pounding showdown at the abandoned, decaying Aldaya mansion, which, remember, is the very place where Penelope died. Daniel and Bia are cornered by the murderous Inspector Fumero. Things look totally hopeless. But then, from the shadows, Julián Carax himself emerges. He steps in to protect the boy who protected his book all those years ago. A brutal, frantic fight ensues, and in a moment of pure Gothic justice, Fumero is ultimately impaled and killed on the arm of a stone angel statue right there in the mansion's dark garden. The devil of the past is finally defeated.
And with that, the long nightmare finally ends. Now, Daniel is severely wounded by a gunshot during the fight, and he spends weeks in the hospital. But he survives. He successfully breaks the tragic cycle that consumed Carax. In the aftermath, Daniel marries Bia, and they have a son, who they beautifully name Julián. And as for the real Julián Carax, well, having been given a second chance through Daniel's intervention, he escapes back to Paris. He stops burning his past, and he finally begins to write again under a new pseudonym. The curse is officially lifted.
Which brings our timeline to its conclusion in the year 1966. This is a full decade after Daniel's son is born. Daniel has taken over his father's bookshop by now, and he's just finished writing a novel of his own. The title of his manuscript? The Shadow of the Wind. It's the very story we've just been uncovering together. It proves that the whole metafictional experiment at the heart of this tale has come full circle.
In the novel's beautiful, incredibly resonant closing moments, Daniel Sempere takes his own young son, Julián, by the hand and walks him through the dawn mists of Barcelona. He leads him right back to the hidden, labyrinthine aisles of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, exactly like his father did for him. It's this breathtaking, heartwarming reminder that tyrants fall, fires eventually burn out, and people pass on, but stories and the people who bravely protect them will always outlive time. Which really leaves us to ponder the immense weight and magic of the books we hold dear in our own lives. So, let me ask you,
If you were granted access to the Cemetery of Forgotten Books today, and you could only choose one single story to protect and save from oblivion, which one would it be? Think about that for a bit. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next Explainer.